He said, you get the Ayatollahs out, you bring about regime change in Iran, and school books will write about you, history books will write about you. Just think of the generations to come who will be talking about you.
Netanyahu also warned Trump that once Israel struck, Iranian missiles would hit American targets in the region too.
The president came to the realization that the head of the snake has to go, and we have to change the way we engage with Iran now, or presidents 5 decades from now will still be stuck playing whack-a-mole in the Middle East.
Now, once again, the president was on the precipice of launching yet another war.
President Trump takes this back to his wartime cabinet, and they all are providing their opinions, many of which say that they don't agree.
There was a lot of things that they put on the table that could happen. There were all of these risks in terms of the global economy, the ability of Iran to wage a quite asymmetric war.
The one cabinet member that was pretty gung-ho was Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. He has just been so gung-ho to carry out the president's military adventurism without question or pushback. Even the sort of yes men that we've seen around the president have felt like Hegseth has taken it a bit too far, and that you do need to be a lot more transparent about the risks that are involved in a military operation. And many people we talk to around the president are not really sure that Hegseth does that.
If Hegseth wasn't putting on the brakes, there was another military man that could. General Dan Kane.
General Kane, chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, had deep reservations about embarking on this war with Iran and had let other members of the administration know that he had doubts about the efficacy and the strategic objectives of the mission. And it was Susie Wiles who pressed General Kane to be more forthright with President Trump, feeling like some people were holding back on what they really assessed were the precarious possibilities of starting a war with Iran.
We saw Dan Kane really lay out all of the risks of what could happen. One of the ones, obviously, the Strait of Hormuz.
This choke point, the Strait of Hormuz, they've been in every Pentagon war game over decades. This should not be a remote surprise to anybody.
The military knew all this, and Trump was definitely briefed on it. We know that.
Those who heard about the deliberations say Marco Rubio didn't take a stand.
Marco Rubio is a shrewd enough operator that he kept a very firm distance from putting himself in one camp or another. He would present an analysis in one direction and in another direction to help the president come to his decision, but he was someone who really stayed clear out of taking a firm stance.
The one that we know who pushed back was Vice President Vance.
J.D. Vance was one of the fiercest opponents of getting involved in this conflict. He said it might get us into a situation that it has spiraled out of our control, that we can decide how wars start, but we don't know how they're going to end. You've seen this happen time and time again. You rose to power on this promise. This will cause a rupture with our own base. If you break that promise, it could be a very serious rupture.
But Vance knew his place.
Vance had said, look, I think this is a bad idea, but if you do it, I'll support you all the way.
A source that I've spoken to about this very issue said doing anything more than that would have been political suicide. He's not going to tell the president, no, you cannot do this. His job is to advise the president. And that is very much kind of in keeping with how his current cabinet operates.
President Trump sees himself as a survivor.
Iran, have you made a final decision on Iran?
No, I haven't. Well, we haven't made a final decision. We're not exactly happy.
Part of his persona and part of his personality is that there's an aura of invincibility.
Is there a risk that strikes could turn into a long, drawn-out conflict?
I guess you could say there's always a risk. When there's war, there's a risk in anything, both good and bad. We've had tremendous luck with myself. Everything's worked out, and then we do the Midnight Hammer and so many others. Everything's worked out, and we want to keep it that way.
He's still riding high on his Venezuela mission in January. He viewed himself as invincible. Remember, he was a convicted felon, and he avoided death, and he came back from political no man's land. He wanted to do things that no one else has done, and believed that nothing could stop him because of everything he had just lived through.
Netanyahu's promise to Trump that you can really take them out. You, for the first time in 47 years, since the 1979 hostage crisis, you can be the president who gets this done. Clearly that argument outweighed the various skepticisms that Trump was hearing from other members of his cabinet.
A lot of people who have been with him through the thick of it look and say, well, he's mounted these comebacks that nobody thought were possible. He's participated and authorized all of these different excursions overseas and come out on top. And there's just kind of a belief that in the end, things will work out. So what you really see in this war cabinet is a group of people who do not want to get on the wrong side of President Trump and who don't see it as their obligation to stop him. They see it as their obligation to enable him to achieve his desires and his professed desired outcomes.